what we just heard and saw was incredibly powerful. I don't know whose idea that was. It was really, really moving. I've been to a lot of meetings like this meeting, not just for SLC 6A1, but for many other neurodevelopmental disabilities, and I haven't seen anything like that. I think it really shows how important your voices are, each of you. Each of you have a story to tell, and it's important for the whole community to hear that. And I didn't plan on this, but honestly, it dovetails very well with what I wanted to talk about. Let me just say thank you to Amber and all the organizers for giving me and all the other speakers the privilege to address you. My talk actually got shuffled in the schedule because it's a bit of a hybrid. It's intended for both the professional scientific audience as well as for the family audience. So you showed a lot of flexibility in moving me to this time slot. And it's just especially privileged to be talking to everybody here who's dressed in purple, or who should be dressed in purple, even if you're not. We heard some incredibly exciting talks down here through the day, and I think you've heard versions of many of the same talks upstairs as well. Talks about Ravicti, the incredible responses that many kids are showing to that, talks about alternatives to Ravicti that may be on the horizon that work in a very similar way, or gene therapy kinds of interventions, or other kinds of interventions which are coming down the pike. Really fantastic stuff. You know, if we're all incredibly lucky, some of that will start being available within a few years. But I don't think that anybody who's working on that is going to tell you that we don't still need to build the foundation for future research. And the key part of that foundation is hearing your voices, is getting your input that goes into the registries. Whether it is the registry that we run at the Simons Foundation, Simons Searchlight, or the efforts that Combined Brain is doing, or getting the data from your medical records in the way that Citizen is doing, it's all really, really important. And as you just showed us, you all have unique stories to tell, and all of that needs to be recorded. Laura Birmingham told me earlier today, I don't know who did this analysis or survey, that there are 30% of you who have not yet had the time or the opportunity to add your voices to any of those registries. So I really hope that you will, so that we will hear your voices and your children's voices. So I promise to be really, really brief. I'm not going to run through all of my slides. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing. So the Simons Foundation is a nonprofit organization founded by parents like you. Parents who did really, really well in their professional lives, and that's how they got the money to be able to set up the foundation, but were touched in their lives by a family member with autism and became very, very interested as well in genetic conditions that are related to these neurodevelopmental disabilities. The foundation as a whole funds math and science research. Autism, neurodevelopmental disabilities, genetic conditions is only a small part of it. And within that part, we have multiple branches. Searchlight is just one of them. You see the second column here. Mostly the fourth column, we give grants to researchers. So to the researchers in the room, in case you're not aware, we have RFAs, which of different sorts. Some are like really wide open RFAs. Any idea that's related to SLC 6A1, we would love to hear about from you. And feel free to call me, or I'll put you in touch with my colleagues if it's not science that I understand. To discuss whether it seems appropriate for our funding. And that specifically is for our pilot RFA, where we're really looking for novel exploratory things. We also have funding for senior postdocs who are about to go on the job market, for them to take a package of funding with them to their first job to make them all the more attractive and to really help establish their career more securely. New next year, we're going to have an RFA on early neurodevelopment and how that feeds into what we were calling emerging neural circuits that underlie seizures or other kinds of important neurophysiological phenomena related to SLC 6A1 and all the other conditions that we fund. So any questions about funding, let me know. We also give away a drug. I don't honestly know that it's of interest to this community. It's a GABA B agonist. So it's GABA A receptors are much more thoroughly understood and researched. We have a GABA B agonist. You can buy it from Aldrich or Tokris. It's going to cost you like $25,000 if you have a lot of mice, so we'll give it to you for free. So mainly we give out grants. But then we have this Searchlight registry, one of the many efforts that are going on. We cover a lot of genes. All the ones listed here, you see SLC6A1 is outlined in the blue box. I'm just going to talk briefly about it and what's unique about it. So far, we've had 179 SLC6A families sign up. You know, it's a pipeline and participation gets less as you look at who has really like completed everything. But there are 120 already who have filled out surveys, 21 who have given blood. A lot of different genetic variants. You've heard all about this today. I've heard a lot about, might get this wrong, I think A288V and S295L. But those are certainly among the ones that we have representation for in our cohort. And one of the things that we do uniquely is that we create iPS cells, induced pluripotent stem cells for researchers to use, and then we give it away basically $120 to researchers who want to use it. And we'll give it to any qualified researcher, whether they're in an academic setting or in industry at a drug company that is working on this. So far we have given away stem cells for the 291 mutation, for the 408, and for the 459. The S295L is in the works. I think they're just like expanding that. That's the step in the way of producing the stem cells that the scientists refer to. So those are going to be available really, really soon. We had A288V in the pipeline. Unfortunately, it's challenging to make stem cells. It doesn't always work, so we were not successful in that instance. Just so you know, as a side note, creating stem cells, creating like, it's sort of like reverse aging. It's like the Benjamin Button movie with Brad Pitt. It's like, it was so amazing to like take somebody's blood and then convert it down to a stem cell that can later be converted back up to a neuron or a kidney cell or a liver. That was so amazing. It won a Nobel Prize in 2012. So that's the kind of thing, that's how new these kinds of techniques are. We're doing this for this research community and for other research communities as well. And what's really neat is when you have the registry data telling you like, this originally came from the cell of somebody who has a certain kinds of seizures, a certain frequency, who has communication at this level, who has the certain other kinds of medical issues. I think that's what our registry does uniquely, is we can connect that data that you give us then with the stem cells that are being produced and that researchers are going to use. So I'm going to be brief again. This is just a profile of the people who are currently in our registry, the age buckets. So we have like 23 who are 0 to 4 years old, about 29 who are 5 to 9 years old, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, a lot with seizures, and as we heard from the speaker earlier today, it's not the drop attacks that are most common, but the absence or atypical absence or petit mal kinds of seizures. A lot of other neurologic conditions. I'm not an expert in SLC6A1. It was very interesting to hear from the family who just stepped up here and told us about migraines. That's not something we heard about yet in the families who've entered our registry. So really, we need to hear each and every voice. But obviously, it's not just seizures. There are other neurologic conditions. Third from the bottom in blue, vision. We have some really cute kids with glasses that you showed us pictures of. We know that's an issue. And as a developmental pediatrician, let me just say, like, all of your kids absolutely should go be seen by the ophthalmologist, because if it's vision is one of the issues standing in the way of their development, that's something we can address. Gastrointestinal stuff, really common. Haven't heard a lot of talk about that today, but clearly constipation, GE reflux, et cetera, really, really common. If your kid has these kinds of issues, you're not alone. The medications that are taken, of course, the most common are the anti-epileptics. Sleep is number 2, medications to help with sleep. I'm going to skip over that. And then, again, what we have, I know the combined brain effort is collecting the Vineland as well to look at developmental status. We're also collecting more broadly, looking at the behavioral kinds of issues that I heard about a lot from the families who just came across the stage. So I'm going to cut it short. Let me just say, show you this one graph. So on the Vineland data that we already have, I'm not sure what the total number of 43 individuals have given us data, really detailed data on what words their kids say, like how they can express themselves, etc. So we have data from 43 people. We see how it changes with age. The good news is that the kids do tend to show better and better expressive language abilities as the years go by. Clearly, their expressive language is not as strong as you would expect in a kid, in a young adult who doesn't have SLC6A1, but overall, it looks like there is improvement with age. We have those kind of data as well. And what I just want to show you is that we feed this information back to you 4 times a year. Every 3 months, we update what we call, I think we call it the profile of the condition on our website. You can go in and see it. It's specific for SLC 6A1. It shows you the age range for the people we have data from. It shows you the common medical issues. It shows you what we're hearing about the common behavioral issues, et cetera, et cetera. And any researcher can also access these data for their research projects. Dr. Kim Goodspeed alluded to using data from Searchlight and some of the fantastic work that she's doing, laying the ground for future clinical trials. You know, there's a big epilepsy research group at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They're also availing themselves of these data. So these data are available. We are all about sharing. We're actively talking about how we're going to integrate our efforts with Combined Brain with other projects that are going on. We don't want to stand in the way of progress. We don't want to make things difficult and make people repeat things that they're already doing for other projects. The only issue, of course, is always going to be confidentiality and privacy. Make sure that we're not violating, that we're not sharing anything that people wouldn't want us to. So that's unfortunately why we have to have lawyers looking over our shoulder for whenever we start talking about sharing. So I am just going to leave it there, tell you that I'm really just a small part of a really big Searchlight team working on all of this. Thank you very much.